What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our first NCAA basketball March Madness bracketology. As always, Ty is joining me to break down our brackets and what we see happening right now if the season ended today on Friday, February 10th. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below to be entered into our giveaway at 500 subscribers. And all you have to do to be entered is to be a subscriber to our channel. So go do that right now to make sure you are entered. But Ty, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, if the rest of the season goes anything like it's gone to this point, good luck filling out your bracket because about half of my games I could have flipped a coin and it could have went the other way. But I'll get into it here. Up in the South region where Purdue is the number one seed, and they probably will be locked in there in March unless something crazy happens. I see a lot of chalk here in this region. In the first round, the only upset I have is Kentucky over San Diego State, and they would probably be favored, to be honest. I don't even know if that's an upset. But I have Purdue and St. Mary's matching up in the Sweet 16. Xavier lost Fremantle. I think that's a big loss. So, and St. Mary's, even with that bad loss, I still think they're a pretty good team. So I think they get through. And then I have Illinois upsetting Iowa State there in the second round. And then I have chalk in the Elite Eight, Purdue and UCLA matching up. And I think Purdue gets by UCLA. UCLA is a really good team, but they don't have anyone near Zach Edey's size. So I don't see how they're going to slow him down. And if you can't slow him down, I don't know how you beat Purdue. So I think Purdue goes to the Final Four there. Down in the East region, I see some chalk, but I do have one upset. I have Akron, a 14 seed. Don't sleep on the MAC. I think they upset Marquette if this was how the bracket shaped out. The MAC is a good basketball conference for a mid-major. I think they'll pull a shocker there. And then I have Arizona and Indiana both moving on. I'm not high in Gonzaga, and I think Indiana, if you take away, 2022, that part of the season, and just go off the new year, they would be probably a top three seed. So I think they're going to be really dangerous. And then I have Miami beating Akron, and then Creighton upsetting Texas, another team where if you took away 2022, they'd be really good, or seeded a lot higher. And then I have Arizona and Creighton matching up in the Elite Eight, but I think Arizona is going to be way too much for them, and they get to the Final Four. So two one seeds so far, Purdue and Arizona. And then up in the Midwest, we have the Alabama region. I think Hofstra is my upset here. Actually, I have a couple of them, Hofstra and Clemson. Providence, I know they had that Big East championship last year, and then everyone picked them to get upset, and they still made the Sweet 16. But Clemson, I think, shuts them down on defense, and they get that upset. And Kansas State has been a really good story this year, but sometimes those kind of fluky stories almost they fizzle out early in March, and I think that would happen here. So I think Hofstra pulls an upset. In the second round, I think Clemson pulls another upset, beats their fellow ACC foe Virginia, gets to the Sweet 16. And after that, I think it's chalk in the Sweet 16. So you get Alabama and Kansas. But, it's hard to pick against Kansas right now. The defending champs, they have a lot of that team back. They've been struggling a little bit lately, but I'm picking them to get by Alabama. I can't pick three one seeds to make the Final Four. I hate having that much chalk, so I got to pick one upset. I'm going with Kansas. And then down in Houston's region, the West, this one I went a little upset crazy, maybe too much. I have VCU upsetting Rutgers. Rutgers is a team, they play good defense, but they can, just be absolutely cold on offense some nights. And I think that could come back to bite them. VCU upset there. I think Arkansas upsets Iowa. Iowa never does anything in the tournament, unfortunately. It's become a pattern, so I think that continues. In the second round, I think VCU pulls another upset over TCU. And then in the Sweet 16, VCU pulls another upset over Houston. Seems like every year you have a team seated very low, kind of in like the 9 to 12 range that makes the Elite Eight. And I'm picking VCU to be that team as of right now, upsetting Houston. And Houston's been prone to either upsets or really close games. So, I guess, see this one coming right now. But I think Baylor not only beats Tennessee, but I think they would dominate VCU there in the Elite Eight, and Baylor would get to the Final Four. So we'll start with Purdue and Arizona. This one is tough to pick, but I think Arizona is one of the few teams that has a center that can match up with Zach Edey and Umar Ballo. And obviously, Arizona's loaded outside of him. So I think if anyone's going to take down Purdue, Arizona might be the best chance to do it. And I think they would do it if I had to pick it right now. So I'm going Arizona there. And I think Baylor is just playing much better than Kansas right now. So I'm going Arizona and Baylor. And I got to lean towards the team with the experience. And Baylor, even as a 3 seed, I think they would get it done right now. So as of now, Baylor's my national champion.
And then for my bracket here, it's going to be a little different than Ty's. I'm kind of going more the chalk region. But obviously he has a fair point. Baylor winning it. It seems like they have the experience, the team that really kind of hit a wall as they entered 2023, but they have found their stride now in the late month of January and February. So it's a good pick, and it's a not a popular pick right now, which is always great to see. But for me, I got to go with the popular pick. Obviously, you can see right there, I'm going with Purdue all the way, but we gotta see how we get there. And I think Purdue doesn't really have a challenge until they play St. Mary's, where I think St. Mary's can give them a challenge, just because they are a decent defensive team and can score the rock very well. And if they can somehow limit Edey to, at this point, 30 points or less, they will have a shot to win. We saw what Indiana did to Purdue last week, and great game plan, and they came in and won. But I just don't think that's going to happen. Moving into the bottom of that bracket, nothing really crazy happening there. The only upset I have is Kentucky in that one, and then they lose to UCLA. Iowa State moves on. Those two play. I think Iowa State, the Cyclones, it seems like they're on a crash course for at least a Sweet 16 run. And for me, I got them going to an Elite Eight facing Purdue, but that's where they'll get manhandled in the paint. Purdue will move on from that region. And then we'll go to the East on the bottom. Houston is the 1 seed in that one, and they're going to breeze through their first game, not their second game, their first game. And I think Auburn could be a scary matchup for that Houston team just because of how good Auburn has been at times and how bad they have been at times. So if they can get hot and get, all the momentum going into the tournament, I think this could be like a last year North Carolina team. Auburn, has shown glimpses of them becoming a real beast in the SEC, but it just hasn't taken full fruition yet. If they beat Tennessee last week, I mean, this team might be a 5 seed at this point in this bracket. So you really can't take the seeding too, accurate right now just because we're still a month away. But I still have Houston moving on, and they're going to be playing Rutgers. Yes, Rutgers, the team that is a 5 seed. And, I just think they are destined to make some noise in this year's tournament. It seems like they've always been right there and get in and then lose their first game. And I think that's this year is going to be the year where the tide changes and they get to the Sweet 16, but they will lose to Houston. And who was Houston playing in the Elite Eight? They were playing Tennessee, the Volunteers, the team I just spoke about that have kind of struggled in recent weeks, but they're finding ways to get wins. And well, if that's the case, I got to go with Tennessee to go all the way to the Final Four over Houston, over Baylor, and Baylor will play the only team I have in an upset in that one in Arkansas, which, as you said, doesn't really make a lot of noise. And that is just in part two, well, because Iowa just doesn't show up during tournament games. So from the left side, I have Purdue and Tennessee. And the right side, we're going to find that out. The number 1 seed, we got Bama. And Bama, well, they will be playing Pittsburgh. I don't think Michigan State's going to win one game. And then we got Oral Roberts. Yes, Oral Roberts, the team that a lot of people, if you're really deep diving into college basketball right now, are into as a possible double-digit seed that could make a run. This team is better than the team that beat Ohio State 2 years ago. And why are you saying that? Well, Max Abrams, the sophomore then senior now, is putting up better numbers. He has a better team around him, better shooting cast around him. Defense has been great. Playing a weak conference, and I think they will win that conference with ease. And they're not only going to just beat UConn, they're going to beat Kansas State as well, who has been very inconsistent too. So give me Oral Roberts to play Alabama in the Sweet 16, but that's where they will lose to Bama. And then the rest of the bracket, I'm going the other way here. I'm going Providence. I think they beat Clemson. I think they eke that one out 50-49, or a low, ugly scoring game. Virginia will move on. Maryland will move on. Kansas will move on. Now that's where it gets interesting. Kansas, I'm having the defending champions lose to Maryland. Yeah, that's probably not what a lot of people are thinking about right now. But that's what I have happening just because I think Maryland has played some really good basketball as of late. Obviously, they lost. It seems like in tournament time, it comes down to who's been, battling adversity a lot. And it seems like everyone in the Big Ten has been doing that just because everyone is so close to each other that every game matters. And that gives you a Sweet 16 matchup of Providence and Maryland, two teams that definitely aren't expected to be there. And I'm going to go with the Friars. I think they're going to avenge last year's Sweet 16 loss and get to the Elite Eight, but then they will lose to Bama, and Bama will move to the Final Four. And who will they be playing? They will be playing Gonzaga out of the West. And yeah, this team has not been pretty, to say the least. Gonzaga, struggling in conference play for the first time in almost a decade, it feels like, struggling before they get to conference play. But that doesn't matter because they are going to take out some weak teams to get there. That's kind of what I have happening in this bracket. This is my, kind of hit the fan bracket, as you would say, just because it seems every year there's always one region where you're always right and you're completely wrong. And this is probably my region that will be the crazy, chaotic one. I have Zona. They're moving on. And then they're going to lose to Northwestern, who Northwestern, until I think it was either last year or the year before, they won their first ever NCAA tournament game. And I think this year it's going to be even better as they're going to win not one, but two tournament games over number one seed to face Gonzaga, where they will lose. And then that bottom, we see it every year. I think do you know the stat? I think it's like 8 or 9 or 6 or 7 years in a row. There's always been a first four team in the Sweet 16. So for me, I'm liking Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State will beat Boise State. Oklahoma State is a team that had a rough start to the year, injuries, suspensions, whatever you want to say about that team. They're finding their groove right now, getting some solid wins in the Big 12. And shoot, they might even have a chance to win this whole conference if they win out, just because of how jam packed it is. And they're going to beat Miami. They're going to beat Marquette, who's been a great story this year. And that's where they will lose to the biggest surprise, I think, of this tournament in Creighton. In Creighton plays USC, which they'll get a win. They'll upset Texas, which you and I both have an upset over Texas in the round of 32. And then Creighton's going to go on and beat Oklahoma State in the Sweet 16 to get to the Elite Eight. And I'm so high on Creighton just because this team, well, the beginning of the year, nothing went their way. But since 2023, as you like to say, 2022 didn't count. This team is probably a top 3 or 4 seed right now in the country. And the way they're playing, they're on a crash course for at least an Elite Eight run, in my opinion. But this is where Gonzaga's experience is going to help them. They're going to go to the Final Four again in a big, shocking way that I don't think too many people are high on. So you can see my Final Four there: Purdue, Tennessee, Alabama, Gonzaga. And I got Purdue moving on against Tennessee and Bama beating Gonzaga. More likely, I think these two teams are just on a crash course to play each other. It's going to be interesting to see how the high scoring guard offense will handle the high scoring big offense. And I think it'll be a great championship game, but I do have Purdue coming out on top because I just can't, one, bet against the Big Ten, two, bet against Zach Edey because, well, frankly, how many teams are actually going to be able to stop him from dropping 30 and 15 a game? And three, this is probably the best year they've had in a long time. And that state of Indiana needs a national championship. So why not bring it home for the Boilermakers? But that's going to be it for our video this week. Make sure you guys check back next week to see how much the brackets have updated and if we're going with the same national championship or we're switching it up, switching up our Final Four, switching up a lot of games just because of different seeding. So make sure you guys come back next week, hit that subscribe button to be informed when our next video drops. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.